I'm going to introduce the people who are taking part in the fireside chat. And they might just put their, as they're walking up, they might put their hand up so everyone knows who they are. So the first up is Dr. Michelle Spertus, who is a very, very old friend of mine. I've known Michelle since I was literally 4 years old. We went to primary school together, and we've somehow ended up in the same space at the same age, which we consider semi-miraculous almost, but we have. She is assistant professor and head of department in the discipline of occupational therapy in Trinity College Dublin, and her own particular research interests include lifespan development and the transition to adulthood for people with disabilities. So some of you might be very interested in Michelle's research that she did for her PhD, and some of you may know her indeed. In fact, some of her former students may be here perhaps, I'm not sure. We have Jamie O'Leary. Don't wait for me to call your name, just come up if that's okay. Be making your way up. We have Jamie O'Leary from County Cork. Jamie has been engaging with St. Joseph's Foundation since 2019 after finishing 7th level, and he did a 12-week social farming placement at Mary Cook Connolly's farm, and Mary is just about to sit down there beside Jamie, and he currently works part-time in a butcher shop in Mallow. Brendan Bright from Kildare has participated in social farming at Val and Una Cross's social farm, and he accesses services from the Northwest Kildare Mental Health Team. And very welcome, Brendan. Hope we've chairs for everybody, have we? We have, great. We've Rita Brosnan. Rita, you might just put your hand up there so we know who you are. Rita is a retired librarian who gave up her job to advocate and care for her son Brian, who we're also delighted to have here today. And she's going to speak particularly because Brian is very unusual in Ireland, and as far as we know, he's the only person using a personalised budget to access social farming supports. Gerald Doherty is a social farmer from County Sligo. He does social farming along with his daughter Kelly for over the last 2 years on their mixed farm in Sligo. Mary Cook Connolly is another social farmer from Glenville in County Cork and works alongside her husband Tom. I think they mainly have a suckler herd down there. And she also works part-time with St. Joseph's Foundation, so she's sort of wearing 2 hats today. Deirdre Deegan is a senior occupational therapist on the Northwest Kildare Community Mental Health Team and has supported people, has supported Brendan indeed in the past in accessing social farming supports. And Deirdre Collins then, in the middle, is the service coordinator with the Brothers of Charity Services in County Galway. So thank you all very much, and I will hand over to Michelle. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, and it's a real privilege to be here. And actually, we've been having a great conversation outside and having our chat, so it would actually be lovely to continue that on, and it's a great opportunity. We've just got 30 minutes, so I apologise as we go if I kind of cut in on you, and just to give everyone a little chance, and it's wonderful to hear everybody's experience. Mary, I might come to you first, if that's okay, sorry. But just how did you become involved in social farming?
I was actually trained as a chef, so I was working in St. Joseph's Foundation, and I was training service users in the kitchen environment. So, and I've 4 young kids, and I was like, we have a farm at home, we're both working full-time, so the farm is like part-time, a hobby. So I was trying to think of, it's an asset and another way of inputting money into it. And then I knew the lads, like working with the service users, their abilities and stuff. So, and I saw the impact, I suppose, in my own family, and I wanted to spread that on further.
Okay, great.
For them to gain the, I suppose, the confidence as well. And even seeing young kids like working on the farm and doing their jobs and stuff, the confidence and the skills they learn they're second to none, like, and they give them that independence, and I wanted the lads to experience that. And I always refer to service users as the lads, because they're just people you're working with every day, but they all have, like, I suppose, challenges in life, and a lot of stuff is done for them, and they need, all the time they're gaining skills, and I just think the more knowledge and more skills they have, their confidence grows, and it's just a benefit to them.
Great, great. And you brought, Jamie travelled up from you today. Thanks, Jamie, for coming. Jamie, you went onto the farm with Mary. Yeah. What kind of things were you doing when you were on the farm?
I was doing feeding cattle and feeding horses and feeding chickens.
Right. And what bits of it did you like the most?
Mostly feeding animals.
Right.
And feeding cows, mostly.
Okay, and I hear you were particularly fond of the horse.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so that was something you liked. Is it something that, I know you're finished now, you've done your, how long were you there for?
For 12 weeks.
For 12 weeks, and would you go back if you got the chance?
Yeah.
You would, yeah. We also have Brendan. Brendan, had you ever been on a farm before?
only in a car looking into a field.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in it?
Oh my God. Deirdre rang me one day and she said, would you be interested in going on a farm? And I thought, okay, the Reardons maybe. And I had no idea what to expect. As I said, the closest I'd ever seen a cow was in a field. But when I went there, the very first thing that struck me was it was like the Darling Buds of May. The farmer and his wife were just so lovely, so welcoming. And when you're really, really low, it's exactly what you need. So I just found the whole experience an absolute fabulous and would recommend it to anybody.
And what do you think it did most for you? What was...
Oh, gave you confidence. Because it's the one thing we don't have. We've lacked it. We'd gone through a 2-year lockdown, which was terrible. And I know it was for everybody, but your confidence is gone. Even your will to live is gone. And to suddenly have responsibility when you want it and if you want it. That's the great thing about it. There's no pressure put on you. It's when the farmer thinks, yeah, that guy is well able for that, you were given that. So you came out with feeling so much better than when you went into it. I was really sad when it finished.
And I hear you've been back since a couple of times.
I have, because I got to know the farmer so well. And the poor man had a hip replacement. And I said, look, I'll be your hip till you get better.
That's brilliant. Gerard, you're a social farmer yourself. Could you just tell us a little bit about your farm and then I suppose what your experience of it has been?
Well, we have a 96-acre farm in Quarryfield in County Sligo. And it was my daughter encouraged me that we'd go into it, we'd both go into it. And we contacted Andrew Chilton, and he has been a great support to us and great encouragement to go into it. And the fact that he was farming himself, he really, really understood and was able to explain to us about our abilities and that we would be suitable to provide this service. We have a horse breeding farm, sheep breeding, we have 2 alpacas, 2 dogs, a pig, chickens, ducks, all named, you know, mostly 2 of everything. And the participants who come often focus on particular, and a very important thing as well, a grandchild who was just born around the same time as the participants were coming to the farm. And it was very interesting to see the different focus of the different participants. One might love the alpacas, one might love the ducks and find great. But I remember one particularly really, really quiet guy. He'd hardly say a word. You never know he was happy until Mike, my grandchild, arrived out. And he would stay there as long as he'd stay cooperative. And to see over the 8 weeks, him watching the progression of the child and him, you know, trying to find different things to make the child happy. And you could see him progressing all the time. He was bringing out his music. He loved music, the participant. He loved music. And he was trying to find different songs that would make Mike happy. You know, and it was, at the same time, it was making him happy. You know, and my daughter said to me one day, if my father, who was farming with me until he was 93, if he was looking down and watching us dancing in the field, you know, he'd have a great laugh. So it has been great. It's been great for us, and it's been great for the participants. Really, really. And I'd recommend it to any farmer.
Well, Rita, your son is with us as well today. Fine. Would that be your experience of it for him, or what do you think he got from it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we knew from day one when we went to Angie and Shay's farm there in Knockanur that it was ideal for Brian. And it's a lovely, homely atmosphere. an extended family, you know, they have their granny living there as well, and she's so kind to all the participants and with our fireside chats and everything. But for Brian, the most important thing that we saw happening for Brian was a huge reduction in anxiety because he has autism. And that, you know, people with autism suffer from great anxiety. So for him, you know, the farming gave him the opportunity to shine and to gain in confidence. And he's really less anxious, a lot more confident, willing to take initiative now in doing things that he wouldn't have done before, previous to the farming. We actually think it's the best thing that Brian has ever done. And we've never looked at Brian's disability as, we'll say, fixed. We've always looked to, you know, allow him the potential to improve and to, you know, to socialise and to have a good quality of life, basically. And we believe that social farming has done that for Brian. He also, I have to say, you know, when people talk about health and well-being and, you know, mental health and all of that, Brian suffers from chronic seizures. And he's actually, we got a personalised budget for Brian through the department. And he's been on the farm now, the same farm for a year and 6 months. So he's had continuity. He's had the opportunity to, you know, to shine and develop and do all those things and gain confidence. And so he's been weaned off his medication now for seizures. Next week they're starting. And we believe that that reduction in anxiety has really, really helped him.
And that's an interesting point, because we were talking about this, and Aisling, you brought this up as well, just in terms of being unique in terms of using the personalised budget. But to me, it sounds like a lot of other experiences. I know certainly, you know, Brendan, you would have been a shorter amount of time, and Jamie, you would have had 12 weeks, I think, on the farm. Deirdre Collins, if I could come to you, in your service, it's very embedded.
Yeah.
How long is the placements in your service, and how do people go once or twice? Or
Yeah, well, we've been lucky, I suppose. You know, we started, we first met with Social Farming Ireland, I think back in 2016, 2017, and we would have started with placements, sample placements for people. And it's something then that we continued on from our own core funding. And we're lucky we have the backup of that apparatus to do that. With some farms, we put a service level agreement in place with Social Farming Ireland, and seeing that the continuity and the consistency, which is often so important for the people we support by our service as well. Because after 10 weeks, you're only really getting going. Maybe it's just dealing with the anxiety of trying with something new and becoming familiar and comfortable. So we have some people that have been involved with the programme in some farms for maybe, now you have to take into account COVID with this and the breakup of time as well, about 2 years. And it's just been wonderful. We've seen, like, I know Brian said in his speech, it was like normal activities, but it's got such exceptional outcomes for people. And you know, it's something that we very much believe in as an organisation and want to support, because we're definitely seeing that impact for people, and especially having that length of time as well to build up confidence and consistency and building up their skills.
And actually, Deirdre Deegan, you mentioned that as well in terms of COVID, actually, that it's one of the few activities that managed to continue on for your service. I don't know if you'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was no other group that was able to happen in our service, only social farming during COVID. And throughout the whole of COVID, we had one pause of 4 weeks, where other groups were off the table for in excess of a year, you know, so it was a fantastic opportunity for us.
Yeah. And what do you think, just we'll stick with you for a minute, what do you think is the difference? What does social farming offer, perhaps, that's different to what other services are being provided?
I suppose for me as an occupational therapist and for our occupational therapy department, we will always focus on activities and ideally in the community. But what social farming does is the variety of activities that can happen in any given day. We can't set up any other environment with the best of intentions that can provide such a wide range of activities. So there will always be something that will be of interest to the participants. Not everything, but always it allows people to find their niches in the variety that's available. And I suppose the environment, it's three things. It happens outdoors, in nature. It is the family element of that environment. All other groups will be clinician-led. So this is the only group where we are totally in the backseat. We facilitate from the background, but it is not clinician-led. And that family element, we can't. There's nothing that we can provide in our service that will give that natural family element that happens on the farm as well.
Thanks. Mary, you're wearing two hats, as Aisling said. And so, as being in a service as well as being on a farm, what do you think is the value that it brings across the board, I suppose?
I think really, I suppose it's nature-led. Like in the winter, the animals are housed. Coming into the spring, you're planning to get them out in the field. Summer, you're going out checking them, you're counting them. There's always something like, if it's raining, there's an indoor activity. Like you dress for the weather, then like we had one group, they were saying, oh, it's slow down for the winter. And I was like, why? There's more to do in the winter than there is any other time. They're inside, they're housed, you're feeding them, you're grooming them. Jamie loved the grooming, like that's what ticked the box for Jamie, was the horse and the grooming. He really loved that. And he found it just relaxed him. Like I remember another day, they had a row, two of them coming down to the row before they left the building. When they got in, they were jumping on a bale of straw. They'd forgotten about the row, like, it just didn't matter. They were just busy all the time. There was stuff to be doing, and even if there wasn't, we'd go in and have a cup of tea. That always sorted everything. The chats were good at the cup of tea table. Like, I mean, it's just, there's always something to be done.
And Jared, you have people for, I think, 8 weeks on your...
8-week placements, since January 21.
Yeah, and what value do you see in it? Or
I see, I noticed their well-being improving very, very quickly. Even in a matter of a half an hour from the time they come, you'll see a different outlook on their face. And, they mightn't want to move, they might just want to come and have a cup of tea initially. We set up a table out in the farm buildings, and there are animals around us, there are alpacas coming up to the table, there's a pig, he'll come up and shuffle around, and there's always a laugh because of that, where the alpacas want to come over and kiss people. And that's constantly sort of in their face, and you can't be unhappy in that sort of environment. So there's always a laugh, there's always a joke, and maybe one of the participants teasing the other, but he wants to kiss you, he doesn't want to kiss me. There's always this sort of laughing. There's exercise, go out to the fields to count the sheep, look at the horses. Some of them love the sheep, love the baby lambs. Some of them love the horses, some of them love the alpacas. And there's a great variety. But it's good for us also. It's a lovely day for that few hours from 11 till 3. There's a big focus at the moment on greening farms. And what's more important than people's well-being? If they focus a little bit more on the well-being of everyone, farmers would green naturally. And encourage more farmers to go into this activity.
And I guess that's perhaps one of the challenges, and we were talking a little bit earlier about, Rita, you might want to jump in here as well, just in terms of, ensuring it's sustainable, and I don't know if you would like to...
Well, we were delighted when we had the opportunity to apply for the personalised budget. Some people call it individualised budget. And when COVID hit and all the services stopped, towards the end of 2020, we applied to the Minister for Disability. We contacted the office personally, and we asked what was the state of play with regard to an individualised budget. And they informed me that there was a pilot project starting up. So we were actually accepted onto that project, and within a week we had a meeting with the head of disability services in Wexford and with our providers. And also we had the head of the personalised budgets, the Aisling Hunt, she was in place at the time. So we were given an opportunity then to go for a self-managed budget or a service provider-led budget, where the service provider manages your actual personal budget, which is already set by the HSE. In Brian's case, for instance, the budget follows the person. So that got set up very quickly, and we opted for the service provider managing our budget because it takes a lot of the clerical work, you know, invoicing and deciding what services you want for your son or daughter. So that was great. That worked really well for us. So our stream of funding was ring-fenced back then, and it still continues today. So we don't have to keep on reapplying for funding. And I kind of feel, you know, that I'd love to see other young people. I know that there are many young people applying for social farming in our service, and they're not actually being successful. So I think it really is dependent on having maybe the HSE having a stream of funding going, you know, either through the service provider or through an individualised budget, where you know that could happen. Yeah. That would make it sustainable for the farmer and sustainable for the end user, and so everybody's happy, and it's so valuable. We can't express what it has done for Brian. It's like home to home, and yet he's in that learning mode. You know, he has that social dimension. You know, social farming is so great for that. Yep. The social dimension. So, you know, that's really what I hope to see happening in the future.
Yeah, and Deirdre, you had mentioned as well about how there's a wait, you know, there's a big interest.
I've been saying this, like, of a waiting list for a few years, and it's really heartbreaking sometimes. You know, we have a certain amount of placements that we have diverted some of our funding that we would get through the HSE to keep this going, and we, you know, unfortunately don't have the resources to increase that. And you know, when word of mouth gets out there, and they see John or Tomac or Stephen or whoever it may be, and that, you know, seeing the enjoyment that they're having, you know, other people have come forward as well. You know, I'm based in East Galway, and the rural identity and farming is so embedded for people. And I would work maybe with older people that may have come from a farming background, and from a young age were separated from their families, who went into an old sort of institutional service provider. And now we're going back, you know, for more personal, like person-centred, individualised supports. But for people of that age, sometimes it's just the memory of home, the family connection, being proud of their farming identity as well. So you have a lot of people with great interest and want to move from being in a building all day, you know, to being outside, not being surrounded by paid staff, being involved with farmers, real fulfilling activities, learning skills. So yes, we have a huge demand and would love to facilitate more of that if we could.
And I know, Brendan, speaking with you, you'd go back again if you were given the opportunity, would you?
Go back? Yeah. I was sorry I ever left.
Yeah.
But I was actually very lucky because we got an extra couple of weeks. I don't know how, but we did. But I think when I was talking to Deirdre, she was kind of very lackadaisy, and she said, you know, do you have any kind of wishes that you'd really like to come true? And I said, yeah, I would love to sit on a horse again. It was just a dream of mine. I worked with the horses in the 70s, and to just sit on a horse again. And about 4 weeks into it, she said, Brendan, I have a bit of a surprise for you. She brought me up to her riding stables, and I sat on a horse, and it's probably the first time I had a tear in my eye in a long time.
Yeah.
But absolutely fantastic. The real thing is, you know what you're going to be doing, but it's never the same. You're not stuck in a room with one-to-one, which is very hard for people like us, where you have to give details about you. These situations, you don't have to do that. And that's what makes it kind of special. And then building up a rapport as well with the people that you're working with.
Yep. And not coming from farming. So, you know, there's the two sides of it. It's not, you know, it's...
I tell you, know, the most amazing thing was, Val has some calves, I'd never seen a calf up close. Not only was I mixing it, but you were putting your hand in to make sure it wasn't too hot or wasn't too cold. And you have this trough. You have to get it on the bar at exactly the right time. Put the amount of milk into each one. Otherwise, you have some row with them calves. That, honestly, you couldn't buy that.
Yeah.
That experience is just incredible.
And Jamie, had you grown up on a farm, or had you?
No, I haven't, no.
No. So it was new to you as
It
well.
was, yeah. It was grand.
And you think now it might be somewhere that you might like to
Yeah.
go back
Hopefully,
to,
yeah.
or get more work in? Of course, you're very busy at the moment.
am,
You're
yeah.
working and in the butchers and things
Yeah.
like that. I'm not sure on time, Aisling. Are we only 5 minutes? Great. Can I get back to you then, Mary, if you don't mind? Just in terms of, I suppose, the benefits to it in terms of the service users or the people within your services, and perhaps a little bit of the challenges of getting it all set up, if you would have anything to say.
The benefits of services, you can see their confidence, but then I suppose the disappointment then after the 12 week when they're just getting comfortable, the farmer's getting to know them. Built, like I wouldn't have known Jamie before he came because he was in a different group, so I wasn't getting groups, I wasn't getting people that I was working with all the time. So it was like a first time meeting, you get to know the people, get to know their likes, dislikes. One man hated going into the chickens. For a finish, he was the one organising all the water to be all portioned out, and he was washing off the dishes and stuff like. But they all found a job that they were comfortable doing. And by the end of the 12-week placement, they were confidently able to go in, clean out the chickens, do it all. They organised it all themselves. Like for people that never went into it previous, like I suppose the skills and the confidence, and they were delegating each other. They were able to work together as a team. Like all that is something that just grows. And just to see it kind of, I suppose, disappear again after 12 weeks, it's a bit soul destroying, really. Like you'd love to see the continuity for them as well. Like the benefits of it for it to continue would be just massive, I'd say as well. Like
So that's kind of like a challenge, and I know, George, you mentioned this earlier to me as well.
Continuity, yes. It's sad for them and sad for us when that 8 weeks is over and they're wondering, why can't I come back tomorrow? Why can't I come back next Tuesday? And what you said about the team, teamwork, if they're doing a little DIY task, putting up sheeting on a gate or something like that, and you show them how to use a little battery drill, and next thing one is showing the other and stepping back, and you do it this way. The team building is very important, and the continuity. And I think it's lovely to hear Brendan from a non-farming perspective coming out onto farm. It's lovely to hear that.
Yeah.
Like their skills they're picking up, you just couldn't see that in a closed environment. It's outside, it's ticking all the boxes for new directions. Like it's the definition of new directions. You're meeting people in the community, it's not controlled, it's all voluntary, really. Like even my kids, I saw, like they'd be so excited getting off the bus. Are the lads still here? Are they still here? They could be playing soccer with them before they hop on the bus for the lads to go home. Like so, my little lady, I have a service user. She's coming back again, and she asked to come back to the same farm again because herself and Sinead, they connected. They used to be painting stones outside in the back, listening to Barry Manilow dancing. Like you couldn't write it, you wouldn't see it. Like, and it was just, it's hilarious. Like, and she's so excited. We even met the lady before Christmas for a coffee and stuff, and she'd gifts for the kids. Sure, we were mortified, like, And it's just that bond they had made, and it's there for life. You can see it, like, because Sinead is so excited. She's come back to summer. Yes, I'll be off for the summer. She's delighted, like. So there's things like that, I suppose, you can't predict what's going to happen either. It's unpredictable, and that's it.
And Deirdre, just back to yourself, just in terms of the process of referring in and getting referrals, how does that work and how do you manage?
So from a community mental health team, referrals come in from any professional within the community mental health team, and then the referrals are screened by a subcommittee as such of OTs, and then we'll do pre and post assessments because we're constantly looking for the outcome measures so that we can go back and say, look how beneficial this is. We placed 13 people on farms last year. So last year was our pilot program. So we're much further behind than like Deirdre here. But we placed 13 people and we had 12 people complete their farm placements. So those kind of numbers and from start to finish don't happen in any other group that we offer. And even within those 12 placements, we had in excess of a 90% attendance rate. And again, there's no other group that we're getting those kind of numbers. So that kind of information going back to our community teams, Brendan going in to his clinic appointment and saying to the consultant or the nurse, this has been my experience, has the other professionals then thinking, oh my God, okay, maybe this might suit somebody else. So Brendan's voice is much stronger than mine will ever be on the teams. But yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, I think maybe we should stop there, although it's fascinating and so interesting, and I'm certainly converted to, so if I wasn't before, Cashling comes up to speak to our students, so I have to admit being very much an advocate for it. But thank you so much to everybody. Thank you for coming, giving your time. It's a big, I suppose, challenge to sit here in front of so many people and speak, and thank you, Jamie and Brendan. I know this is something that you're not particularly comfortable with, but thank you so much. And to Mary and Gerard and to Rita for coming and talking on behalf of your son, and to Deirdre for your experiences as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done.